Welcome everyone to Coaches Connect. I am your host, Kate Solovyova. I'm the master coach at Precision Nutrition and a director of community engagement here at the company. And today I am joined by a special guest of honor, Adam Campbell. Adam, can you make large movements with your hands so we can, there we go. No, just Adam. I asked Adam to make large movements so we can see him. Because there's so many windows. I wanted to make sure you saw where Adam is. Now, Adam is editor-in-chief at Precision Nutrition. So if you have ever if you've ever read a newsletter or an article written by Precision Nutrition in the last, how many years, Adam? 4, 5? In the last 5 years, Adam has read it, reviewed it, had something to do with it. Most newsletters are currently mostly written by Adam. So Adam, I'm going to hop off mic and video just for a minute, and I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of context just on your background in writing, publishing, fitness world, and also how it relates to newsletters, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, well, I didn't know we were going to do this, so thank you for that, Kate. I appreciate that. It's always nice to be in front of like 100 people without expecting it. So my background is kind of strange. I wanted to be a writer for a long time. I went to University of Missouri with the plans of being a journalist, and I flunked out my freshman year for the reasons lots of people flunk out, and that included basically not going to class or reading the material and staying up late and sleeping in. So after that, I took about a year off and went back to school, different school, got an English degree. I didn't really know what to do with an English degree. And so I was editing, I was proofreading, birth announcements. Someone has a baby and they want to tell everyone about it. Maybe they don't even order birth announcements anymore, but you used to get these things in the mail that told people about your baby. Now you just put it on Instagram probably. So I used to proofread those, and it was the most boring job in the world. And I ended up somehow becoming working in the commodities market in Chicago. So like in the trading pits, the mercantile exchange. If you've ever seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and they go to the trading pits, and it's the people all like waving their arms around, and there's paper flying everywhere, and they're yelling at each other. That's where I worked. And I did that for about 5 years. I became a trader. Sort of like first year of college, I didn't do great at trading and kind of flunked out of that as well. Spent a year selling computers. So now at this point, I'm about 28 and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I really liked fitness. So I learned that you could get a degree in fitness, basically. So I went back to school and got a master's degree in exercise physiology and was on my way to getting my PhD. And thought, I don't really know if I want to do this either. I don't know if I want to be in school for another 4 years, essentially. So I told my advisor I'm going to leave the PhD program. I'm just going to finish with my master's. That day, I saw an ad in the NSCA job board for an editor at Men's Health magazine, and I applied and got the job somehow. I think it's because there's a guy who worked there for a very long time named Lou Schuler. He's written a bunch of best-selling books, New Rules of Lifting. I think it's because he was also from Missouri. And so when he found out I was from Missouri, I got sort of a favoritism a little bit. So anyway, I got that job. I worked at Men's Health for 15 years. I ended up running the website. I was fitness director there for about a decade. Ended up being put in charge of all the magazines, Men's Health, Women's Health, Runner's World, all the stuff that the company published. And in 2018, the company sold. I was chief content officer. The new company, Hearst, already had a chief content officer. So I left the company. And I happen to know John Berardi, who is the co-founder of the company, from a long time ago. We worked on some articles at Men's Health together. We started talking, and he told me, I'm kind of stepping back from content. I'm looking for someone to take my place. Do you have any recommendations? I recommended a few people, and then we decided it should be me. So that's how I got here.
That's incredible. I like how you just glossed over the whole like men's health, women's health, runner's world, being chief content author. Did you guys hear that? Yeah, yeah. Like the magazines that you see when you're checking out of the grocery store, those. So we're so lucky to have Adam on the team and do the writing the newsletters. So Adam, right now, like what will folks have seen recently that you have written?
The thing that I write the most myself is the Live Better project. So it's a newsletter that supports our sleep, stress management, and recovery coaching certification. So I generally write that. We also have Smartest Coach in the Room. I've written many of those. I haven't written those lately. And with our articles, I usually edit them. So editing can mean various things. It can mean kind of just going over something and changing a word here and there or making a recommendation. And it can also mean rewriting the whole thing. So it's actually like basically yours, but not yours. So sort of like a person behind people. I've done a lot of ghostwriting in my career. I kind of prefer it that way, to be honest, because people can't attack you on social media, and so I kind of like that. But there is also something about having your name in print and having people know you wrote things that's like very satisfying. And that's actually why most writers, a lot of writers write, is they love seeing their name like in print and having people know this came from me. I've
Yeah.
done so much of that, I don't really care if I do it again. But I do still enjoy writing and creating content.
Yeah, I love that. And Lisa was saying she came so close to going to University of Missouri to study journalism. So
It's the best place to go. Apparently, I wasn't good enough to get through it, but I would have been if I had actually gone to class. So
well,
it was
Philip.
the number one party school in the US my freshman year, just to be clear, as voted on by Playboy magazine. So you can take that for whatever that means.
Incredible. Well,
Yeah.
for folks here, I mean, you showed up. I'm assuming you maybe you just wanted to hang out, which is always awesome and amazing. But I think many of you knew what the topic was today. We were going to talk about all things newsletters. And I'm just curious in the chat if you want to pop in there and just let us know where are you at with the newsletter thing. You've ever had one, you've never had one, you're thinking you should have one, you want to have one, but don't have one yet. So give us a little bit of context as to where you are with this nebulous concept of a newsletter. And I mean, I wanted to chat about this day. Like I started my newsletter. I pulled it out a couple of days ago. Actually, I had a little screenshot that my very first newsletter went out in 2015. And I was like, wow, it's been a long time. And I think I finally hit my stride with that newsletter, like feeling like I know what it is and who it's for and how often it comes out. I finally hit that last year. So you guys can do the math. 2015, 2022, what is that, 7 years? Adam, how's that math? Like, does that sound about right in terms of how long things take? I'm figuring them out.
Well, it's like creating a habit or changing a behavior. Sometimes it takes, it's not an overnight process where you just all of a sudden, hey, I'm doing a newsletter and it's going to come out every week. We've all seen those people used to blog, and a lot of people still do, but the blog posts where someone's blogging regularly and then they stop and then they come back and they say, I'm back. And we've probably all done this at some point on social media or somewhere. And like, no one missed you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even have to announce that you're back. You could just write again. It's fine. But yeah, I think that happens. That happens a lot. And you see people, they come and they go out of it. There are times when you're more creative and more productive in that way. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to publish consistently. You can, like, no one's going to miss your newsletter. I mean, ideally people would, but no one will really miss it. But when they get it, it'll be a nice surprise again. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. This is cool. When they see it again. So if you're lucky, people will complain to you if you stop doing your newsletter for some period of time. And if not, then that's okay too.
Yeah, and Adam, you can pop in the chat and just get a little bit of context from folks here. Like, so some people are saying they send a weekly newsletter that recaps the lessons or blog posts in a week. Some have never had it, but are curious, wonder if they should have it. And in terms of frequency, I think that question comes up a lot. And I mean, I've actually seen it done a couple of ways where you will see a consistent frequency. So if you're receiving any of the newsletters from Precision Nutrition, you know that something might come out like every Tuesday or every other Tuesday or 2 times a month. Like there's kind of that designated cadence that we commit to. Or if you yourself are doing a newsletter, it might be weekly or bi-weekly. But there is actually another frequency that I sometimes suggest to folks, especially folks that struggle with like structure and rigidity of structure, and the forever can feel very overwhelming. And I talk about it as like write frequently enough so people don't forget who you are, right? Like the test is, you've ever gotten an email and you kind of go, who is this? Like, that's too long, right? But if you, like, let's say, write a newsletter weekly and then maybe you skip one and then you write again, no one's going to say, oh my goodness, who is Ange? I don't remember Ange. Like, that's not long enough. So however long that is, that's probably once a month or maybe once every 2 months, where it's just enough for people not to forget. Adam, how do you feel about that little rule of thumb for frequency?
Yeah, I think that's good. I was trying to think about this, like it's true on social media too. So I don't really post on social media. It's funny, there's this old Saturday Night Live about synchronized swimming, and one of the guys says, he's a synchronized swimmer. And he says, well, I'm not a strong swimmer. And then he says, I don't swim. And so when I say I don't post on social media. But it's kind of like that. I realized I was actually talking to John Berardi one day recently, and we were talking about, and he's not posting so much either. And I noticed, and I was like, hey, John, did you just stop posting on Instagram and Facebook? He's like, yeah, I decided to take some time off. But he said that he realized that the weird thing about doing that, and I think this relates back to newsletters, is that, and it's what Kate was saying about people forgetting you, is that he's still seeing people post on social media. So he's kind of keeping up with his connections' lives, right? So he knows what so-and-so is doing, and he feels like he's connected to them, but because he's not posting, they're not really connected to him. You sort of get out of people's, thoughts. And this goes for like friends, it goes for work colleagues, people who might, they're looking for you as a coach, or they're looking for you to maybe, I could hire that person for a job or whatever it is. They just sort of like, it sounds bad, they forget about you a little bit. I think that's probably true with newsletters. So I think that's a really good point. It relates back to that. The nice thing about the newsletter at some sort of cadence that's like not so long between is that you kind of stay in people's consciousness a little bit, whether that's just as a personal connection or for a business. I think it's useful.
Yeah. And I think that there's kind of a divide there that we're starting to get at, and it's the personal business divide, where it's like the writing for fun because you enjoy writing, like posting on social media because you enjoy posting on social media, and actually doing so as a business activity, right? Like, and I think two are actually distinct. I tend to blur them quite a bit myself, but that's just because I'm not capable of maintaining multiple personas. But they actually do serve different functions, right? So for those of you folks here that are thinking of a newsletter, I would imagine that most of you are thinking of it in a professional sense. Like, it's a way to keep in touch with clients, keep in touch with maybe leads or prospects, like to make sure that people know what you're up to. I finally called my newsletter letters to friends, and the comments that I've received that were so nice to hear, people are saying it's like light on the news, heavy on the letter, right? Because I really think of them as letters. So for me, like, kind of my success metric of having my newsletter is not necessarily like number of subscribers or how often I write. And this is going to sound selfish. You ready? I want to be able to have somebody pick me up at the Austin airport. at a moment's notice. And I don't even know if I know anyone in Austin, right? But I know that people subscribe to my newsletter in Austin or in Washington or in Seattle, right? And I really, really enjoy having that connection with a lot of people that I've never met before. And some of them have been subscribing to my newsletter for the entire 7 years, right? Or 8 years. So there are those kind of relationships formed as we let people in on what's going on, what we have happening, and maybe a little bit of our lives as well. So feel free in the chat, pop in and kind of say, like, what are some of the challenges that you are experiencing, or like, where are you getting stuck, if at all, when it comes to creating a newsletter? And I'm just going to see some of the comments here. So someone says, never had a newsletter, don't have one, think I should and would like to. I think that's a pretty common place to be. Thought about it, created one, never finished it. Keep a personal blog. Trying too hard to be original and just not posting anything. Yeah, Lisa says, trying too hard to be original. Adam, I feel like you're going to have lots of thoughts on that.
Well, I do have a thought. Something jumped into my head, like actually right when I read that. And so I'm going to share this thing that we used to say at Men's Health, and then I'll explain it because I don't know if it makes sense to other people the way we worded it. But it was, at Men's Health, we don't have problems, we have story ideas. And so if that's not clear, what that means is, when you go through something life, you think it's a problem. For us, it was an opportunity to write about us, about something that then we could share with other people and help them. And I would say that happens to all of us every week. There's something that happens to you. It's fun. So this is kind of this is a roundabout way to tell a story, but I'll do it anyway. So I do fruit prep every week, and I love grapefruit. So I cut up a bunch of grapefruit and I put them in a Tupperware. I have like 3 Tupperware containers right now of grapefruit that's been cut up downstairs, and I just plow through these things. And so a couple of weeks ago, I finished the last grapefruit slice in the Tupperware, and there was a bunch of juice left over, as there always is. And I love it. Like, it's 2 ounces of heaven, fresh squeezed grapefruit juice. And so this is like frowned upon at my house. I don't do it. My wife is like, do not drink out of bowls, do not, etc. And so it's sort of like, I don't let anyone see me do this, but my wife and daughter happen to see me like drink out of the Tupperware bowl. And my wife's like, oh, do you have to? And I'm like, that's the best part of my week. And so they were like, oh my God, he's so weird. And so then this morning I had my grapefruit and I got down to the last one and I drank it, and my daughter was sitting right there. This time I was like looking at her, and she's like, oh, it's the best part of your week. And I said, that tells you how good my week is going. And so it's like, we all have problems every week that we could share. And so the example is, okay, so I don't have problems, I have story ideas. So the big one that I had is that in 2010, I got skin cancer on my nose. It was basal cell, so it's not malignant, but it is a concerning thing that you have to get taken care of. And so it's right here on the tip of your nose. When you have skin cancer on the tip of your nose, it's complicated because they take out a chunk of your nose and they can't pull the skin together because it's too tight. So you have to get basically like reconstructive surgery done. And it's pretty scary because if they don't do it well, you're worried about how you're going to look. And so I had all of these fears, and this happened, and I got diagnosed, but I was working at Men's Health at the time, and I didn't have a problem. I had a story idea. So I contacted the best surgeon in the world, asked him if he would do my surgery and if we could film it. And we did. And I wrote a story about it for the magazine, and it became one of these things that we put out. I won this award for it, got on ABC News. All of these cool things happened from it, and my nose turned out fine. But it was one of those things. It was a perfect example of, I had a problem that I was able to go help people with, and it gave me a lot of comfort to be doing this for someone other than just myself. I'm going through this thing. I've got to go through it anyway, and I'm going to share it with people. So that was like one example. But then the everyday example is our garbage disposal clogged up. And and I'm not a plumber, I know nothing. And so it's all clogged. So we call the plumber comes in, plumber goes, "What did you put down this thing?" And I said, "Well," he's like, "Did you put eggs down this?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Coffee grounds?" "Yeah." "What else?" And I said, "Well, like last night I put like a half a pizza down it." And he was like, "Oh my God." He's like, "Minimal food waste only." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I thought that, I thought it didn't matter. Like I'd heard you shouldn't throw coffee grounds down a disposal, but it was always like people said, "Oh, you don't do it because it's going to hurt the disposal." That's not the problem. The problem is the grounds pile up in your pipes, and then it ultimately clogs, and then you have it backed up, and it's a big problem. And you have to get it jet blown through there. And so he's like, "Minimal food waste only." And I was like, "Okay." So I shared this story in a newsletter because it dawned on me one day. I was like, "Oh, this is," I immediately changed my behavior, right? I have never put coffee. I don't put anything down. I only put minimal food waste only down the disposal now. No coffee grounds, no eggshells. By the way, don't do that. And so I from now on, it was like instant behavior change. And I thought, "Oh, why can I change this behavior, but then I can't change these other behaviors, like these health behaviors that I want? Why is that so hard?" And one reason, okay, the guy educated me on why I shouldn't do that. Now I understood, right? It was I was motivated not to have it happen again, especially because I had to pay like a $200 like late hour fee for this. So I really didn't want that to happen again. It was a big mess in the kitchen. The third, it was easy. And then, the easy part of that like trumps everything. And so that was sort of my point. I made this newsletter about this, that like, oh, it was easy. And this is the difference between that change, which happened, and I will never put stuff down my garbage disposal again, versus like trying to change an eating behavior or some other kind of health behavior. That is a lot more complicated, and there are a lot more it's not one little thing, and it's not easy, right? So that was a long way around. I had this problem with the garbage disposal, but I was able to write this newsletter to help explain why behavior change around health and fitness behaviors is so hard, versus how people think it should be, which is easy. It's not a garbage disposal. So those are a couple of ways. So anyway, when you said that, Lisa, I think I immediately thought of this. How do you take what's going on in your everyday life, and people will be interested in it if you can frame it up in a way that's sort of interesting. And the danger is being too self-indulgent. I was a little bit self-indulgent here telling the story. It was blah, 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 I know. But the danger is like keeping in mind when it's like you're just writing for yourself, which is okay to do. It probably won't be great for the readers. So if you're just doing the newsletter for yourself, that's fine. But finding that thing in your life that's like frustrating you, and thinking about, what do you know about this, or what could you find out about this, and share it with others. That's when Kate does this all the time. She's very vulnerable, right? Vulnerability is one of these traits that people love to see. It's really big on social media, right? You can see people making videos about themselves, and they're in their bathroom, like with no makeup on or whatever, like combing their hair in the morning, and they still got the film on their tongue because they haven't, brushed their teeth that morning. That kind of thing, if you can bring that to a newsletter, like, it's really interesting. Kate does that really well. She's always talking about things in her life that she struggles with, or that clients struggle with, that people can relate to. And that makes it interesting.
Adam, first of all, your nose looks great.
Thank you. I mean, I was freaked out. The title of the story was, "Will I Look Like a Monster?"
That's
Yeah.
incredible. And I didn't know that. So thank you for sharing. I mean, I heard right off the bat 2 prompts that you can use for a newsletter. And you notice how Adam actually demonstrated this continuum of the prompts, because on one hand, I can guarantee if you sat down and spent 20 minutes or 30 minutes writing about the worst thing that ever happened to you, That would be an interesting newsletter. You would probably need to edit heavily, right? Because again, kind of like writing from a scar, not the open wound, don't bleed all over people, right? And assuming that this is a processed story just for yourself. And like Adam referred to some of my, like a lot of my writing, like I often process through writing, and kind of by the time it goes out, I've already experienced and thought through that story. So like think of like some of the most stressful experiences that you have had. There is an amazing story there, one way or another. And on the very opposite of a continuum, think of something really freaking annoying that happened to you today. Like, I don't care how small, right? Like, you could have gotten up from the toilet this morning and got a little bit of pee on your thigh, and that is annoying because now you have to like wipe it and like, are you gonna shower? Like, that, right? Like, could be a topic of a newsletter, like how tiny you can go as well. So this is back to Lisa's original question, trying too hard to be original and just not posting anything. And Lisa, what kind of came to mind as I read that, right? That because on one hand we can sort of explore the continuum of how big or how small we can go with a topic, but I also want to address something here that is underneath of us trying to be interesting and original and creative. It's a little bit like me psyching myself up to have like a really good workout today. I'm screwed, because if that's the expectation, like I truly, I haven't had my workout today yet, and I am going to go to the gym after this call. I have no idea what kind of workout I'm going to have. It could be good, it could be great, it could be medium, it could be mediocre. I might have to cut it short, right? Like I could slip and fall, hopefully not, right? Like so, but I have no clue. But I do know that I'm going. You're with me? So I think when we start getting into this, like, but is it interesting? Is it good? Is it really interesting? Will people like it? We're actually solving for, should I write or not? Should I post or not? And if you take that out of the equation, that makes it much easier. So if somebody is like kind of really stuck on like, I don't know what to post, the suggestion, or like what to write, the suggestion I make is post every single day for 30 days. And some of those posts will suck, and some of them will be great, and some of them will be better than others, right? And kind of that same idea with the newsletter, where if you want to figure out what kind of writing you enjoy, what kind of writing really strikes a chord with your readers, commit to writing one newsletter a month for a year. That's 12 newsletters in the next 12 months. And on the other side of that, chances are you will probably know a lot more about the kind of writing you enjoy, the kind of writing length, story, topics, like what really resonates with your readers as well.
That's interesting. I wouldn't discount, like a lot of times people do think that that whole idea of one newsletter a month, that whole idea of in a year you'll have 12, like that's actually a lot. That's a lot of newsletters to put out. And people will discount, oh, one a month isn't very, it's not a lot, but things stack up over time. And it's like if you write a blog and you write one blog post a year or one blog post a month for a couple of years, you then have like 24, 25 blog posts. That's a lot of content for people who might find your site and read. Like that's plenty. Like that can nurture an audience, a potential client really well. They're not going to read 1,000 articles, right? So 25 is like a lot of articles. So that would be a tremendous progress, I would think, in writing. Someone, I think, I saw how do you decide what should be a blog versus a newsletter? You okay if I address
Yeah,
that, Kate?
go ahead.
Yeah. As Lisa again. I don't really differentiate. So we used to, an article would be longer. A newsletter would a lot of times was something to get people to the article. But now the behavior is people would just like, they don't really want to click. They want to, they're all the platforms provide the content right there, including your email, you're just give me the content right there. So if you have something really important to say, it can be really good as a newsletter. It could just be the blog post too. You could literally, depending on how long your blog posts are, you could literally put the blog post in the newsletter if it holds up. Because you got to remember too, when people are reading newsletters, their behavior is likely expecting something shorter than a blog post. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. The blog post is useful because it sticks around for a long time. That's nice. And if you were to do something like, and I don't necessarily recommend doing this, but like optimize it for search, then that's a whole other thing. Like it sticks around and it has a different utility than the newsletter. But it could just be there's the blog post. And then if it's too long to put into newsletter, you do a shortened version in the newsletter. And you can shorten these things. Like another saying at Men's Health is everything is better when it's shorter. You can tell that by reading, like, I haven't read the magazine in a while, but you can tell that by reading the magazine. Is like the most popular part of the magazine, by the way, was not features. Features were 2,000 to 4,000 words long. Then we had like departments, which were 1,000 to 1,500 words. And then we had what's in the front of the book, which are the little short bits, 3 things on a page. They're 100 words to 200 words long. People like, those were the most actually Ask Men's Health was the most popular thing. So, like something shorter, and we even do it here at PN. We'll have an article. We will sort of summarize the article and then we'll give like takeaways. Which pretty much tell you most of the things you want to know. And then if people want deeper context, they can go read the article. And those are for people who really want to dive deeper. But at the same time, you serve the people who got your newsletter and you didn't really do much more work, which is kind of nice. And that's one content approach that a lot of people use is I'm going to create one piece of content and then I'm going to use it. I'm going to figure out how to use it in my newsletter. I'm going to put it on social media. So social media might be an even shorter thing. That plumber story I told you, I haven't actually done this, but I'll do it in the next couple of weeks so that you can see it if you go to PN's Instagram page. I actually had ChatGPT, so AI, break that into, I said, do you know what a Twitter thread is? Yes. I said, turn this into a Twitter thread. And I just gave it and it did a pretty good job. And so without even really doing any more work, I can just take that and I'll just put it on like a white background and just put it up as slides so people can flip through it. And it'll be an easy piece of content to create. So you can use this stuff for multiple things. Or if you did a video, if you like to do videos, you could just make yourself a little video script out of the article, or the newsletter or the social media post, and then you have a video too. So that's like the really great thing about this stuff is that you can really use this content anywhere. If you create it, just put it everywhere. That's the idea.
Yeah, and I think the idea here, like, is I think in many ways we also can get into the semantics of what's what, right? But you notice that the common thread is actually that we're using language to tell stories, right? Like that's really the backdrop. Whether you're doing that on Twitter or whether you're doing that in an email doesn't actually matter. The big upside of the newsletter is the fact that you quote unquote own it, right? So I had 3 days ago, this happened to me. I actually could not post to my Instagram account. So it would say like it posted and then the grid would not renew. And I was like, well, that's a little panicky. But my mind immediately went to, well, I guess I'll just do my newsletter this week. Like that part is not going to go away. Meanwhile, everyone here on memory probably remembers Facebook going down for 2 days, right? Like Instagram going down for 3 days or things glitching. So I think as a rule to kind of, if you pick a couple of places to be, and this is what I remind people when they say, well, do I have to be on social media? You don't have to anything, but you do have to let people know about what you do. And it doesn't matter where you choose to do that. You can do that in a newsletter. You can do it on LinkedIn. You can do it on Twitter. But you probably are going to be somewhere telling people about what you do and how you do it. Otherwise, the example I sometimes use, like imagine if my neighbor starts baking cookies and selling them out of her house. I want to know. I'm not going to find out randomly, magically, to knock on her house and ask her for cookies. I need to know that. Like, I need to know that that is actually a service that is now available for purchase. Please let me know if you're baking cookies and I can buy them, right? Like, that's usually kind of how I think about just communicating what it is that we do and where we do it.
Okay, Kate, I want to highlight that that's a really great point about it being a service to them. Like, so the way I would say that, so marketing, we all think of marketing, and marketing is like, oh, advertising, telling people about, all the benefits they'll get. But you're also providing a service. It's useful content. So I'll use another Men's Health example, but Men's Health became a very popular magazine because we were very good at service journalism. Service journalism is what most of you are familiar with, because it's probably what you do when you post things, which is you try to give people some actionable takeaways, right? So with Men's Health, there was always a tip. It's service. And so for it to be really good service, you would get really specific with the tip. And so as an example, the example we used to always use, and this is kind of silly, but I think it's silly, is one time in the 1990s, Men's Health told men to put their belt buckle, I don't know what that thing is, through the third hole in the belt, because and by the way, anyone could figure this out, but it's the perfect, it leaves the perfect amount of like length on the other side of the belt. It's not too long where it's like flapping over, and it's not too short where it looks weird. It's the perfect amount. But Men's Health told people that, and they were very specific. So now all of these readers are, okay, I know exactly what to do. Like, there's no more questions. They know what to do. It's like such a tiny thing. The magazine was filled with that kind of thing. And it was a service. But we would also tell people, hey, you're interested in a protein powder? Well, get this one, this specific brand, because of XYZ, right? And you're telling them a specific brand, you're marketing for that company, really. But what we were doing is providing a service because we thought it was the best protein powder. And now we're helping people know they don't have to make all these decisions. They know exactly what to get. Impossible to do for a readership of 12 million people, because as we know, the best protein powder for any one person depends on the individual. But that's not really how we thought at Men's Health. We were giving like very cookie cutter stuff. So in this case, telling people about what you do, telling people about the cookies that you're making out of your house isn't an annoying thing to people. You're not like, oh, you're so self-promotional. No, you're actually like, they might want to know that. They might want to support their neighbor. They might want delicious homemade cookies without whatever in them. They might not want to go to the store. There could be all kinds of reasons, but they'll never know if you don't tell them. It's the same way with your coaching services. They might want your coaching services or any other service. They will not know if you don't tell them. And if you notice at the end of our newsletters, like Live Better Project and Smartest Coach in the Room, we do say, hey, if you want to learn more about this kind of thing, we offer a level 1 certification or whatever it is. It's letting people, to me, that's a service, like letting people know. Yeah, it might be annoying to people who've seen it 20 times. They might be, oh, PN, why do you have to keep putting this in here? But it's like a soft sell, and it's really creating awareness. Oh, if you like this, we have more of it for you, and you can check into it. And so to me, that's a service. And so is you telling people about what you do. And I think it's a really important thing that gets lost sometimes. If you go on to Twitter or X, people who are really good at doing threads, Twitter threads, I mean, not threads, but maybe that's the case there too. They have the thing at the end, and if you like this, follow me for more, but they just gave you a bunch of good information, right? And now they're letting you know, if you like this, I'll send it to your inbox. And to Kate's other point about newsletters and having that be the thing that, it's great because you own the audience. It really is like, even all of this time, and how email is much harder than it used to be to contact people. Open rates are down. People don't pay as much attention to their inbox, especially younger folks. There's a lot of stuff that's filtered out, goes into promotions, whatever it is. It's still most powerful way to communicate with your audience, because as we know in social media, reach is hard to get. It's hard to get in front of your entire audience without paying for it. So having those people you can go back to and communicate with, if you can provide service to them, stuff that makes their life better, stuff that they can use, actionable stuff, or just ideas that they appreciate. It doesn't have to be all like stuff they do. It can just be like interesting thoughts. There are people who deliver those in newsletters all the time and are super popular. And like James Clear is one of them, right? He just delivers sort of like interesting content, stuff you can use maybe, but like it's mostly thoughtful.
Well, and I think reach is an interesting point here. So like these numbers are like kind of made up, the ones that I'm about to share, but I think I'm in the general range there. And Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So when I talk to coaches, it is it is not uncommon for a personal newsletter that is coming from a person, not a company, to be in the 40 to 60% range for the open rate. So what that means is that if I'm sending my newsletter to 100 people, about 40 to 60 people will open that letter. Now, if I could have 1,000 likes on my Facebook page, let's say, or think of like Instagram stories, like pick another platform, it is not unusual for the reach to be between 1 and 10% of your audience. So I'm sending out a newsletter for, say, 100 people, 40 see it. For those same 40 to see that content on Instagram, I may need to be in the 1,000 range when it comes to followers. So just direct reach, it's also just much more efficient in terms of what people are seeing. So when we see like, well, my newsletter is not that large. I just heard this from a friend who had a $39,000 launch with a newsletter of like 800 people, because again, it was a highly engaged, highly warm email list with deep relationships wanting to buy what she was selling at the time. And somebody was asking, how do you, Alex was asking, like, how do you build your email list and actually have your newsletter reach more people? Adam, how would you answer that?
How do you build? I was looking for the question. How do you build your newsletter list?
How do you build a newsletter list and have your newsletter reach more people?
I got to think about that. And so we're talking about how to get it up, how to get it up. I mean, one thing, you need good and interesting content, and I would take that and I would put it on social in some form. So like I was just sharing that idea about Twitter, and sort of like doing thread. Twitter may not be your thing, right? Like you hear me talk about Twitter, it's because I actually go on there. I used to like it more until recently, but it's a great place to get like be in like science Twitter, and then you can see what the scientists are talking about before it's coming out. So that was sort of like the reason that I talk about Twitter a lot. But like putting excerpts of that stuff on social, I mean, you've got to put it out somewhere, right? So and the best way to sell your content, to get people to sign up for your newsletter, is to give them a taste of your newsletter. So can you take part of that newsletter and put it on Instagram? Like if it's the plumber story I'm talking about, like, could that be a way to do it? Now, the hard part is people still have to get from Instagram to sign up to your newsletter sign up. And that's hard. That won't come quickly. And I think it just takes time. Substack is obviously a super popular thing now. You just start paying attention to how many people, and maybe I'm skewed because I'm from publishing, so I know a lot of writers, but how many people have Substacks now and how they're promoting them. A lot of them, Substack is kind of cool because you can make the content where you don't have to sign up and people can read it right there. And then sign up for your newsletter and subscribe for more, but they can actually read it like right in the platform. So I see this a lot again. I see this a lot, I guess, on Twitter, because you can actually click links. I see it some on Facebook. Instagram is the harder one, but you put your newsletter sign up or your Substack sign up in your bio, your link in your bio. Is there a way not to have a website, still have a newsletter? Yeah, that's Substack. So Sorry, Substack is one way. So someone asked, is there a way to not have a website and still have a newsletter? Yes, a lot of people are doing that by using Substack. And if you're um, if you're already a student or grad, which I assume you are, we have a resource called Social Media and Newsletter Success Secrets in the platform, that talks about setting up newsletters. Yeah, and MailChimp, exactly. We'll do that as well. So there's a bunch of different ways. I don't have some great, I have to say, I'm kind of stumbling over this question because I don't have some great way. How do you grow your newsletter list? You just consistently write it and promote it. And by promoting it, I mean share it with people everywhere. And if you know people who have a website and they'd be willing to put a link or to share, like, even your people who follow you, your clients or your newsletter audience, if you say, hey, like, please share this, like that idea of please share this newsletter seems like a weird thing. People actually do it, like, within the newsletter. It's the same thing on social media, like and follow. Like, if you don't say that, you will get less people liking and following you than if you do say it. So that ask people.
Yeah, and
That's
we was saying
like,
ask people on the list to share if they like it. Like so if like literally it could be at the end, at the very end of the newsletter, you might see that as part of newsletters that you are receiving yourself. Like if you love this newsletter, forward it to a friend. Right? So just kind of share the topic. And if it is the topic that is interesting to you, absolutely. If I receive an article that is super helpful on how to make my 2.5-year-old eat goddamn vegetables, you better believe I will be
yes.
forwarding it to every parent I know who's in exactly the same boat, right? Like I'm not going to be annoying them. I'm going to be helping them out, just like that article just helped me. And I think from the coaching perspective too,
Totally
like
agree.
when I'm hearing somebody ask the question, like, how do I build my list? How do I have my newsletter reach more people? I want to take a step back and first ask, have you been creating and sending out a newsletter consistently for 3 to 6 months? Because if you have not, I think that we're putting a cart before the horse a little bit, right? Like we're trying to, optimize the powerlifting scheme of our workouts before actually having a consistent habit of exercising. And if somebody is just starting to exercise, I would argue that the goal is to consistently exercise, right? Like for a month, for 3 months, for 6 months. And the same thing applies here. I don't care how many people are on your newsletter. I bet you could send a newsletter out today. And the way I would do it is the following. You open up a blank message in your Gmail or Hotmail or whatever email client you use. Then you use your BCC field and you put in 5 people that like you and that will not be mad about receiving a random email from you. So your mom goes there, maybe. I don't know what your relationship is like with your mom, your best friend, your other best friend, right? Like, so, and that is your newsletter. As soon as that email goes out, you now have a newsletter with 4 people, and now you can start growing it. Now you can next week it might be 6, next time it might be 12. The simplest way of building your initial list, it might have 10 people, 20, 30, 40, is to literally send an email. Now, this is not a newsletter, this is your original email, to every single person you know, and post on every single platform saying, I am starting a regular newsletter talking about meal prepping tips for really busy mothers, or insert the blank of whatever your topic is. It might be random travel musings and how much I hate parenthood 85% of the time. I don't care, right? Like it doesn't matter what it is. And then you essentially have people opt in. You have people raise their hand and say, I want to get that. I want to get that. And again, it could be 4, it could be 44. That gives you that original list. I know lots of coaches that use that with their current and former clients. This is their like seed list who are receiving that regular communication. When somebody reaches out, becomes a new client, they're automatically added to that list. If somebody expresses interest in what you do, they become part of that list. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would say makes sense. So making sure that you're being consistent before worrying about building. Yeah, pop in any other questions that you have. We have another 10 minutes or so. And Adam, somebody was asking, what is the difference between Substack and a website?
Yeah, so Substack, I think you could probably go to, if you Google Substack, you go to Substack. I don't know if it's substack.com or what it is, but Substack is basically a newsletter platform that it'll let you create a newsletter and send it out, but it also creates a link for it. And most of these do it. I don't know if MailChimp does that, but I know our version that we use here at PN does. But it'll create a link that you can also share. That's just, it looks like an article page essentially. It's on the Substack platform, and you can make it available to anyone. You can also, like, a lot of people, they paywall some of them. So like people who get more popular will make some of them free, and they'll put some of them, you can put it behind a paywall so you can read part of it, but then you have to subscribe or pay to read the rest. And it's just like an easy way to share your content on other platforms so people can see what your newsletter has and see if they like it. Kate's answer about newsletters is much better than mine. Like, one of the advantages I've had is, like I said, I was at Men's Health. We had, when I rolled up there, we had 1 million people on our newsletter list. And so for me, it hasn't been about so much. I have built newsletters from scratch, but they were always with a big audience at our disposal. So that is much easier for sure. But I do know that, like, if you make good, interesting content, it will grow. Will it grow as much as it should? It might not. Like, some of that is luck. Some of it is I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that people can't explain why some things blow up and some things don't. But that's really not, like, the purpose of a good newsletter for most people isn't going to be to have it blow up and have it be the business that you run. You're making $1 million a year from running a newsletter. Purpose is to help people get to know you and get to know, if you're a coach, get to know if they might want your services. And by giving people stuff, free information, free advice, free entertainment, they get to know you and they get to trust you and they want to learn and work with you.
Well,
It's
the shift that has happened in the last probably like 3 to 6 years is that we kind of went away from like more traditional marketing towards more relationship marketing. You might have noticed that. Like, I had a friend tell me the other day, she said, if I want my eyebrows done, and it's a new place that I've never been before, I'm going to pull up their Instagram account. And if I don't see who's doing my eyebrows, I'm not going. They're touching my face. Like, I'm not going to, like, right. Like, so, but you notice the assumption there. Like, I want to see who you are. So I'm a trail runner. I'm considering looking into getting a running coach again for next year. So I found a coaching company that I think sounds very promising. They're specializing in long distance trail running. Now, because this is a coaching company, it's not just one person, they have 5 coaches on board. Now, what do you think I did? Do you think I filled out an application on the coaching company's website and heard back to be matched? No, that's not what I did. I looked up in every single of the 5 people and I found them all on Instagram. And I wanted to see cats, dogs, spouses, partners, kids, what do they eat? What do they look like? What do they run? What, like, I wanted to just get a feel of who they were as people before I actually start working with this person, right? And notice yourself possibly doing that as well, like wanting to know, like, who is the person behind the business. Have you ever pulled up a website and it all says we, and there's like, generic logos of salads, and so like, we provide the health coaching and fitness program, and it's like, but yes, and you keep looking, like, about us, like who are you, like, is there anybody out there, like, who is the actual person, who is the face behind like this particular company. And this is especially relevant, right? Like, this would be less relevant for Men's Health or Precision Nutrition as a company. But, if I, Bob, am the running coach, then people will actually probably want to know me a little bit. And I think that gets at someone's question earlier, like being stuck on how much personal or business should I do, right? Like, so how to blend the two. You definitely want there to be enough personal there to give us something to hold on to grab onto, to get a little bit of an idea of who you are as a person. I think I was sharing an email I received with Adam last week. So I heard from somebody in response to a newsletter. Somebody said, Kate, if I ever was looking to hire a coach, it would be you. First of all, amazing. Second of all, I have no idea who that person is. I have never interacted with that person in my entire life. This was the very first communication they chose to send me, which was incredibly sweet. But they have subscribed. They've been receiving the emails for a period of time. And what the person was commenting on, it's you. I like you. I like your style, your philosophy, your approach. So if I was hiring, notice they're actually not hiring a coach. They're not looking for a coach right now. But if they were, it would be me. Okay, great. That's amazing. Like that's a really cool compliment. But I think the compliment is really like, I see you, I get you as a person because of your communication, because of your newsletters. Like I think I can understand what you're about, how you are. Okay, I'm just going to scroll in and see if there's any kind of last.
I see a question about LinkedIn newsletter
Oh yeah.
subscribers, the email, and I don't have an answer for that. Like I was thinking about it while we were sitting and I was like, well, do you need to convert them? Because I think the challenge you're going to have, to me, like you can put a call to action, but then what's my motivation if I'm going to get the same content here by subscribing to your newsletter versus I've already subscribed to it somehow on LinkedIn, but I'm not familiar with that.
Mhm.
But maybe you don't need to, you know?
Yeah, I think that would be the question. Do you actually need to have both? Like this might be the case of like wanting to be on two platforms, having an email newsletter list that is your own and being on social media platform. And if that's the case, you might want to distinguish the content a little bit, where maybe you have the shorter form stuff on your LinkedIn profile and your longer form in the actual newsletter.
Question about newsletter versus blog. Is one more effective or the same? I mean, it not really. No, I would say, I mean, a newsletter, you're sending it directly to people who've signed up, which is a really great way to communicate with people. And blog, you're kind of hoping they're going to find you. You know, if you have a blog, I would have a newsletter because I would tell people about my blog or put the content on the newsletter. If you have a newsletter, I don't think you necessarily need a blog. Like I think the Substack would work, or some version of that would work great for that. If you don't want to mess with the maintenance of taking care of a blog. That stuff is all sort of easy these days. I don't want to minimalize it because everything comes with it comes with some time and some effort. But yeah, not too hard to do both, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think the distinction now is probably we're really probably talking semantics, because a newsletter and a blog is essentially a piece of writing and it's really where you share it. So if you decide to put your piece of writing on your website, that's great. I guess that's a blog, right? Like, but we still have to figure out how will people find that blog, right? Because they're probably not going to go into Google and type up, www.eatswellmacy.com or whatever your blog is, right? So maybe you do deliver the new blog articles directly to someone's inbox, and like Adam said, that is your newsletter. But I would say like now it's probably going to be more common to just take whatever the blog article is or would be and make that into a newsletter and deliver it directly to folks. And you can have it live on your website as well. Like all of my newsletters live on my website. Like folks here could go find them right now, probably, just because I can then easily link to like an older newsletter from 3 months ago if it's an article I want to quote or something. So it just kind of lives like as a catch-all place, like as a blog archive, if you will, but they're still delivered to people in the inbox. Yeah, it might just be unnecessary extra. Yeah, exactly. So it just kind of like really like what are you trying to do? It's probably doesn't need to be two separate things where you have both the blog and the newsletter. Okay, well, we are actually just at the top of the hour. I always say time flies when it's having when it's having fun. The time itself, when it's having fun, it flies. So there we go. Adam, I wanted to say a huge thank you for being here and co-hosting and helping me field all the questions about all things newsletters. I know where to find Adam. So if anyone has any follow-up questions after this call, feel free to find me, ping me, and I would be happy to answer anything that comes up. Meanwhile, I hope I will see many of you, all of you, most of you in the Coaches Connect next week, where I'll be co-hosting with Coach Sarah Mon, and we will be talking about all things elimination diets and just helping folks with food intolerances, celiac disease, that kind of thing. So I hope to see you there, and thank you for being here today.